everyone, and welcome back to Multifamily Talks Live. I'm your host, Krista Hurley, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by Melanie French, CEO, and Marissa Nuncio Valadez, Director of Applications and Transaction Support at RR Living. Multifamily Talks Live is a monthly candid series featuring bite-sized conversations on all things multifamily right here on LinkedIn. If you missed the live session, catch the replay on your favorite podcast platform. So let's dive in. Thank you so much for joining us. Can each of you tell the audience a little bit about yourselves?
Sure. I am Melanie French, and I'm the CEO of RR Living. We're based out of Dallas. We manage multifamily and BTR. And I've been in the industry now for a little over 40 years. So as you can tell and imagine, I am passionate about teaching people how to drive results, build their own careers, and then instill performance ease in the business.
I love it. Marissa, over to you.
I am Marissa Nuncio Valadez, and I am the Director of Application and Transaction Support at RR Living. I've been with RR Living for about 8 years and been in multifamily operations for quite some time. Very focused on process improvement, resident experience, and everything in the middle. And I'm very passionate about these types of conversations. So I'm really excited to be here with RealPage and to connect with all of you.
Awesome. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why retention matters so much right now. And because over the next 18 months, the multifamily market is in a unique moment. Vacancy is elevated today, but new construction has fallen over 70% since peak levels, meaning supply tightens, and it'll be really fast in 2026. Rent growth will stay soft and concessions will remain high, and turnover costs continue to hover around nearly $4,000 per move out. And in this environment, renewals aren't just smart, they're the most reliable way to stabilize revenue and protect NOI. So to my team here, what do you see as the biggest driver of renewal intent today beyond just the price?
I'm going to have to say consistency, responsiveness, and clarity. Residents are looking for all three of these things. They want to know what's going on. They want to have transparency and just be honest with them and respond when they need you.
Oh, that is so very true. I would add to that, Krista, that it is important for residents to feel valued. In today's world, there is so much technology out there that sometimes that resident experience is hidden in the fact that they're so busy throughout the day. That's when multifamily comes in. As Marissa said, we drive those interactions, and feeling valued is top of the list for every resident.
Yeah, and I gotta share with my audience here that I have a little bit of a cheat because I was actually with Melanie and Marissa this week at their summit, realizing this in real time, the value that they prove day in and day out, and the passion that they have for their residents and their team members. It was amazing to see. So thank you for inviting me. Back to how early should the teams realistically start influencing resident intent, and what signals should you be looking for and working on?
I'm going to say day one. Day one is when you should really start working on retention. Intent begins in the first 90 days. A resident knows whether they're going to stay with you or they're going to move on. Wow. If their experience is inconsistent, price is their reason to leave.
Yeah, you said that very well. And even I tell our teams, Krista, that retention really starts with your curb appeal before they ever walk in your front door. It's with your website because they're forming opinions just like much as when you have a human interaction, that first 5 seconds is so important.
Yeah.
The same is true in the business. They're already beginning to form the idea of, like Marissa said, where do I want to live? How is it valued?
They have their own perception.
Correct.
From that brand appeal. And then when they get on in there, your team needs to exuberate that same first impression.
You have to submit it in.
Yeah, exactly. So what does renewal readiness look like from your resident's perspective?
Well, if the resident is receiving value, like Melanie said, and consistency, price increase is just a conversation, right? So knowing that your resident is ready, they're going to have emotional loyalty to your community, to your staff. The teams will see increases in resident engagement in the activities, the events that they hold. They're going to see interactions between the residents and the office team. So things like that. They're happy to see you.
Yeah. I absolutely love emotional loyalty. I might be taking that from you. That is one of my favorites now. I love that. Now, switching to a little bit of a topic that is really realized in my world, which is AI. So how can AI help predict early renewal intents and those signals so the teams can act months before traditional notice periods?
Well, I think that one thing that Marissa and her community support services team does is they begin looking at that data 180 days before the expiration is even coming up. Her team is looking at what are the resident surveys saying? What are we hearing from our residents? What has that engagement been? And that is a game changer for us with AI. You already have the AI tools that enable you to look at someone's payment history.
Yeah.
And so now, as AI continues, we're able to get a little further into the residents' minds and their mindset on where they are. And that comes in those communications and in the resident engagement.
Yeah. Yeah. So where does AI make the biggest impact? I know it's, you can see it in the data, but in automating that proactive resident engagement without adding any workload to the on-site teams, right? We want that happy balance of human and AI. Where does that fit in?
Why don't you talk about what all you have implemented?
Yes. So value is about getting that early heads up on what's going on before the renewal notice is due, right? And so with community support services, it's our centralization department.
Okay.
We automate milestone check-ins and different processes for consistency so that our residents get that consistency. Where the on-site teams step in is where empathy is required. So where they need that human touch, because we can automate processes all day, right? Yeah. But having that interaction, building that relationship with our residents, that's key.
Yeah.
And so we want to take that off, take those admin things off of our on-site teams so they can focus on what really matters, is making that relationship strong.
Yeah, and I think automation and AI have come so far in really easing the burden of our communities having to actually write renewal letters themselves, of having to worry about, did I spell it correctly? Is it grammatically correct?
Yeah.
All of those pieces. And every single time that we're able to utilize any of those AI tools to ease that burden on site and to take those recurrent tasks away, then what we're really doing is increasing the opportunities for our team members to actually engage with the residents. And that's where your money maker is.
Yeah.
Because we can lease apartments every day of the week, but it is those teams on site, our service teams and our office teams, that really make it a home.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. AI can't do that yet, although I think it's coming close, but
Yes.
It can ease the time and the burden of the administrative task.
For sure, for sure. I mean, I love that you mentioned, the empathy part and really making those meaningful connections with your resident, because you're right, AI is not there, does not have empathy. So how can AI equip leasing teams with real-time market context and pricing insights to strengthen the renewal conversations?
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we've got a couple of technologies that we use.
Yeah.
And one enables us to look in real time at what the market rents are, Krista, and to look at where are we competitive in the market on this day? How are if we have to have concessions? How many apartment homes were leased by our competitors that week versus by us? And that's not, that is really about going out into the market, looking at all the different tools, and our team members on site knowing the people that work on the other communities.
Yeah.
And all of those together end up helping with that.
Awesome. Full service. So I did want to check in to see if there's somebody commenting in the audience, which thank you so much. Jim Stewart, president of Stewart Properties. We hear you. When should you send the resident the first renewal letter that has the price included?
Wow, that is, Jim, that is such a great question, and different companies have such different answers. I've seen companies who wait and don't send the price out until that 30-day mark. I've also seen others who do it at the 60 or 90-day. And from our standpoint, we prefer at RR Living to have that initial conversation be one that is it's really discussing more about the fact that we want you to renew
Yeah.
and not necessarily bringing that price into the first conversation. So from our standpoint, we tend to do it on the second. But we will do that early because we do send out your renewal is coming up and your anniversary is actually what we call it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and so we celebrate that
Yeah.
in the first context, Jim.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. All right. So what's one small operational shift that dramatically improves renewal outcomes? I think this is your wheelhouse,
Yes,
Marissa.
it is. Really focusing on those moments that matter throughout their time with us. Really having that empathy. Like I said, building those strong relationships, because residents are going to remember that. That quote that says, people don't remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And it's so true, especially with retention and your residents.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would add to that I think one of the values has to do with our service teams on site. Because our service teams, if people really think about multifamily, our residents see our service teams as their best friends. Okay, they see the folks in the office as those that lease them the apartments and collect the rent and enforce the rules.
Yeah.
But the service team members are the ones that they love seeing out there, and they're waving, "Hi, Joe, how are you doing?"
Yeah.
And they know him by name, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is a hidden gem in the renewal and retention factor is your service team.
I love
Never forget that.
And I saw that at your summit. You guys had your own little breakout session for your service team, and it was really beautiful to see all the education, them leaning in and really talking about their residents like best friends. I love that so much.
It has to be a partnership.
Yes.
Between the office team and the service team. And if you don't have that, you've already lost a few renewal points.
Yeah. So true. So how can on-site teams use real-time market context to strengthen their, I think we covered that one.
We touched it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to any more operational efforts, where does it go wrong when presenting renewal pricing or maybe those market comparisons? What can our audience glean from your maybe mistakes in that area?
Well, I'll start on this one and tell you that I think one of the mistakes that sometimes we make is not knowing our audience. And that means you may communicate differently with one demographic of resident on community A versus community B.
Sure.
But you have to know your resident base to understand the communications that will tie best and work best for them.
Yeah.
Because really, communicating of any type is a two-way street where you have a conversation and both parties walk away with an understanding of what the intent was. That's communication. And so if it's done wrong from day one, you stand a chance of irritating the resident. Or if you're sending a resident, for example, Krista, a note saying, "Happy anniversary, we love having you as a resident, and your rent is only going up $100, but they happen to have had a flood 3 days ago that really damaged some of their belongings," that's a mistake. So you've got to know those ins and outs.
Yeah,
What else would you say?
Really making those conversations, the renewal conversations and the rental increase conversations, personable.
Yes.
Because the resident will see just a letter coming to their door as this is just a transaction that's happening. Or sending the renewal like a concession, offering a concession to kind of bribe them to stay when they've had a bad experience already is just kind of a slap in the face.
Yeah.
And so really listening to your residents, having that empathy and that understanding, even if you don't agree, allowing them to speak really helps. I think there was a community manager that I was speaking to from one of our teams during the summit, and she said, "I really like talking to my residents, even when we don't agree." She said, "I let them speak. I let them tell me everything. I listen to them, and then I tell them what I think, and then we come to a mutual understanding."
Yeah.
So it may not be that they get what they want or I get what I want, but we're going to both come to a mutual agreement. And I think that's really important.
Yeah,
That's well said.
Yes, very well said. All right, we have another comment from Aubrey Marie Brownfield. Thank you for commenting, Community Sales Manager at Bridge Park. When you have such a large community, What are some ways you recommend creating that personal experience to each resident, especially around renewal time?
Oh, I think that so many times this is where our leasing team members are just critical, and our service team members. Think about it. If you are on a large community and maybe on your service team and your leasing team, you break them out into buildings or sections of the community. So if you have someone you know is coming up for renewal, so maybe you go deliver cookies or you deliver something to the resident, but you have it delivered by your service team member or by the leasing team member that actually leased them.
See, I love that
back
circle.
before.
Yes, I love that.
Because it is a team effort.
Yeah.
So when someone knocks on your door or when you get that small delivery, even if it's just a rosebud and says, hey, just wanted to tell you, it's been 3 years since I first met you during the leasing process. I'm really glad you've stayed. Those small facts and those gestures go further than you will even know. And if you're on a cash-strapped community, it doesn't have to cost anything. There is a value today in a handwritten note that is stronger than it has ever been before.
Yes,
because
agreed.
so many people have lost that art.
Yeah, I agree.
And I really love what she said about leaning in on your service team because they have that relationship with the residents. You know, they're best friends.
Yeah.
And so when they hear the service team tell them, you know, I don't want you to leave, it's going to have more weight.
I agree.
And another thing that I wanted to mention is we have to change our mindset, I think, in the industry as a whole, because we focus on renewals at a certain time period.
Yeah.
And it should be
All the
time. Yeah.
and not just that main focus during the renewal process. Okay, I have all these residents coming up for renewal. What do I do for them, when it should be a bigger resident retention type mindset that we need to have. So
that is so well said.
Yeah.
If you are waiting to work on, and Aubrey may realize this, if you're waiting to work on renewals until that 90-day mark, you're already a little behind the gate, because it really should be and during the entire time of the lease. If you look at that resident life cycle, that resident life cycle, like Marissa said, in the very first 2 minutes, it starts at move-in.
Yeah.
And so you want to keep that going. If you are only talking to the residents about renewal and you're not doing check-in calls periodically to just say, hi, resident, I am Melanie French, and I am so glad you are living here. Is there anything we can do for you today? Then you're losing an important part that can make the difference.
Yeah.
It can be the game changer.
Yeah. Building that trust. And
Yes.
Yeah, of course. So when it comes to back to renewals and, you know, the mark, that 90-day mark, how transparent should you be with residents about local supply or concessions at other locations or even market shifts?
I don't know that you really have to divulge all that information to the resident.
But they're aware.
They are. Yeah. They know what's going on. If they're not really happy, they're going to have already checked your neighbors, see what they're charging or what they're giving away, and they want to see what you're going to offer them. Retention is not about convincing someone to stay. It's about giving them no reason to leave. Whether you increase that price or not, they're not going to have another reason to leave. You know, they can't say, well, the whole time I was here, you didn't respond to my service requests. They were, you know, it took 3 months for you to come out and fix my leaky faucet, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
Those really weigh on a resident's decision, whether they're going to stay or not.
Well, and it's just like if you go to your favorite restaurant, human nature is you want to go where people recognize you.
Yeah.
And you want to go where you're comfortable and you enjoy. And where you live is no different. I think that as an industry, sometimes we fail to realize that for us and our residents, our parking lot may be their front yard. And the patio may be their only backyard.
Yeah.
So you've got to fill in that in between. Anyone can move in somewhere with 4 walls, okay? That is everywhere at all different price points. The difference is the people that work there and with you. And it doesn't stop at just the team members. It also is having residents that our other residents want to live near. So that's where your resident quality comes in. That's where your resident events come in, because it really is larger than just the community. You have to build a village that people want to be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that you say that. I was just thinking about an experience that I had, and this is not apartment community related, but it kind of is in the same line. I have a book club, and we do. This is outside of work, because I also have the one at work, but the one outside of
course
work.
you
We go to different coffee shops,
Yeah.
little local coffee shops, and we went to this one, and it was a little pricey, but the associate there was so welcoming. She made us feel at home. She came and she's like, "Are you good? Do you need a pillow?" Like, it was just a different experience that I was like, we're definitely coming back. My entire group was like, we are coming back here. Like, it didn't matter what we were paying.
Yeah.
We were going to go back.
So you created a personal brand, essentially, is what that young woman did.
Yeah.
She did.
Yeah. I mean, we are such a people business.
Yes, we are.
Multifamily. So, speaking of timelines, and I know you guys have said the renewal process is just forever going, right? It's ongoing. But why is March such a crucial month for shaping renewal outcomes in the April to August timeframe?
Well, if you think about it, March is really the first month that people probably can breathe, because after you have all of the holiday season.
I feel like I'm breathing.
Oh, yes. And then, you get through the winter season and all of the things that come with that. So I think March is really the month where people start thinking of spring. And for so many individuals in different parts of the country, that springtime is the time when they start feeling their happiest. And if you're happy, you make great decisions, typically. And so that takes us into that May to June, because we know that inherently, if someone has been thinking about moving and they have children, for example, they want to think about that school year. And so you start doing that towards March, because it does in many of our C-level communities across the nation. When you get into that workforce housing, they're constrained on their finances. So if they are going to move, they need time to save up to be able to do that. And that really starts about March and April that gets them into that jam.
Yeah. We did have another comment from Jim. Thank you, President at Stewart Properties. How do you sell a current resident on signing a renewal that is more than the current market rent as shown on your website?
Oh, and that is a tough one.
Yeah.
I think that is when you and your owners, Jim, or you yourself, you have to really put yourself in that place of that resident. And I would suggest having talking points for your team members that have to deal with that, because it is a very real conversation. And while sometimes that may include having a conversation around the fact that, yes, resident, yes, you absolutely could move out. And if you do, unfortunately, if you think about it, all of the cost involved in that is going to be more than what this increase is.
Sure.
But let's talk about what increase would you be willing to pay and think is fair. There are different ways you can handle that, and there's no right or wrong. Sometimes it's an uncomfortable conversation. And sometimes it's a matter of letting the current resident know that while they may see a lesser price on the website, is that because of differences in the apartment home? Does one apartment home have finishes that the others do not? And or is it, it's location, what is the floor? So you've really got to know all of the factors to know the best way to answer it. But I tend to go with that honest and transparent approach. Being transparent with your residents is also a way of building credibility.
And trust.
And yes, and that trust is critical.
For sure. Now, this is funny. Aubrey and Jim keep going back and forth, and all of their questions,
I love it.
All of their questions keep compounding for you guys to answer. So this is great. Again, Aubrey Marie Brownfield, Community Sales Manager at Bridge Park, asked answer their questions regarding the market rent increase when the property has not undergone any sort of renovation or improvement. How do you have that conversation?
Well, the increase isn't necessarily on a renovation, right? You don't, it's the value that they're paying for. So if you're having resident activities and building the community sense within your apartment community, that builds value. And so being able to increase the rent just based on that alone, I think is and having timely service requests. I mean, response times, that is going to be able to increase, because they're going to know that if they're here, they're going to get their service request handled, or you're going to answer the phone in the office when they need you. I think that's like what Melanie was saying. It builds the value is what they're paying for.
Yeah. And I will say, Aubrey, that is never a fun, easy discussion. But I don't think it's wrong either to actually talk to that resident and to say, unfortunately, everything in the economy right now has gone up. And we do have to recognize that, because it's not limited to just the home. But for us, in owning the apartment homes, our utility costs have gone up. The services that we offer you, in order for us to be able to continue to offer all of the areas that you have enjoyed, all of the amenities, to be able to offer you this location, there are increases in everything. And we're no different. We're, at the end of the day, our homes and our apartment communities are still a business. And while we would love to say that we can keep costs the same, do you really want to earn the same income this year that you did last year? And the only way for Aubrey, for your resident to be able to really understand that, is to know that if they want to have an increase in their own income at work, then perhaps their prices wherever they work must increase as well, because there's a cost to that. So honesty and transparency can be good.
This is total sidebar, sorry, derail. I'm the HOA president for my community, and we just recently bifurcated our collections. We do, the HOA fees, and then we have a special tax credit that we have, or tax district, that is credited through your taxes in South Carolina. And I just held our annual meeting, and they were very upset about the increase in not the HOA dues, but the tax credit. And I said, well, the tax credit is feeding our lampposts, our signs, enhancing our sign for the community to go in, all of those things that you would relate to an apartment, renovation. And then the HOA dues are mainly for all of those fuzzy fun stuff, right? All of the events that we go through and stuff like that. So I just, when you were articulating that, I was like, you're right. It is a really hard conversation to have, but it's a necessity, because you want those things, and this is the way that we get it. And
you want your light post to look nice.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And it's where, in our industry, we really have to be on top of our game, Krista.
Yes.
We have to do our best every day, not just 5 days, but really 7 days a week. And I don't think that our residents always understand the amount of impact that taxes, that insurance, that utilities have on a community, because they would not see that at their home. They wouldn't pay in a single family home. They're paying for the utilities they use, not for the whole community.
Right, and that goes into that transparency. So I do love that. So I know we talked about some wrong, missteps, but I'm going to ask again on a misstep that can derail the renewal intent early, right? So you guys you're building that rapport, you're making sure that they're happy, but what in the process, could go wrong that your team should avoid?
Oh, I think you should talk about move-in here.
Yes, bad move-in experience. A difficult application process. All of those things will just, they're already going to have a bad taste in their mouth. They're going to feel like, I have to move in here because I've already been approved. I've already paid the deposit and the application fees. Like, I'm not going to go somewhere else. I'm just going to move in.
Oh, you just saying have to just makes me feel,
right.
You're right.
It's bad. So they're already going to have that mentality that as soon as I can get out of here, I'm getting out of here. And it's very disheartening, but really focusing on that, I think, is one of the things.
And look at, how many service requests do you have in the first 30 days after move-in? Right. How many in the first 10? Your goal should be 0 or 1 or less. So the move-in experience, as Marissa said, is key. Above and beyond anything else. There are studies that say that if you have a bad move-in, they're 56% more likely to move at the end of their
Wow,
renewal.
that's over 50% of the time.
And
Wow.
I don't care if it's 3 years later. If you have a bad move-in, they remember it.
Yeah, yeah.
The other, one other thing is the attitude of the team, whether it's service or on-site or in the office. When a resident has a question or just wants to come in, the attitude that's reflected to them, the tone that you're using, your facial expressions, things like that really matter.
A human. Yeah,
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I do want to ask the one and final question, which is, if you had a magic wand, what would be one thing that you could change in the industry or have in terms of tools for your teams to help with the renewal process and with your residents renewing?
I'm going to let you start with that one.
Okay.
I think.
Well, aside from a magic wand, I would say the one thing would be a true open conversation with each and every resident. Even as the CEO, if I had the magic ability to do that, the residents tell us so much, but we have to listen.
Yes. Yes. I love that.
I think, and just because of what I do now, I think really having strong support teams for your on-site teams, having that backbone that they know is supporting them will really change the attitude of your on-site teams and how they treat their residents and support their residents.
Yeah. So at RR Living, it's all about the people.
It is.
I love that.
It's
like
about-
both of you, instinct.
It's about the people and the residents. I don't really consider myself as the CEO of a company. My role is to guide our teams and to support and really make sure that we have a great resident experience.
I love it so much. Again, thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Marissa, so much for joining us today at Multifamily Talks Live. And thanks to our audience for joining, as always, and for those that were, having great conversations with our team here. We're excited to continue this series and offer up valuable conversations and topics that you can expect monthly. And make sure to follow us on LinkedIn for any updates on upcoming live conversations. And we hope you enjoyed today's deep dive into resident retention and how to stay ahead in the multifamily industry. Thanks, and see you next month.